That is the Commonwealth grasping at straws. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck.
Okay, so you know how sometimes something sounds so crazy? You just got to tell somebody.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, get ready, because today we are talking about one of those stories. And get the main weapon, rubber duckies.
Rubber ducky.
Yep, rubber duckies.
Okay, now that's something I gotta hear about.
I know, right? It's insane.
What is going on in Canton?
Rubber duckies.
Rubber duckies and the law. It's a bizarre intersection, to be sure.
Seriously, so...
Like, first it was the whole trial thing, now it's ducks.
This is what I'm saying. It's like what started as a serious case has just gone completely off the rail. Okay, so get this right. We are diving into, get this, a story where rubber duckies, you heard me right, rubber duckies, might actually be considered tools of felony witness intimidation.
Wow.
This is happening in Canton, Massachusetts, and it's connected to, well, it's connected to the already complicated Karen Reed case. And of course, we've got to have the background on the Karen Reed case itself.
Of course, yeah.
So for those who might, need a little refresher, Karen Reed, she was dating this Boston police officer, John O'Keefe.
Right.
He was found dead in the snow back in, what was it, January 22?
Yeah, beginning of 22.
And so she was charged, right? They think she hit him with her car and took off.
Yeah, I remember that.
But the whole thing was super controversial.
Yeah, lots of talk about potential misconduct, maybe even evidence being hidden. It's a messy one.
And that brings us to the rubber duckies. Remember, during the trial, Reed's lawyer, Alan Jackson, he used that whole, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. Well, some of Reed's supporters, they kind of took that literally. Literally. As if that wasn't enough already.
Yeah, it's a fascinating situation, really, where you have something as simple as a rubber ducky becoming, well, it becomes a powerful symbol.
Right.
And it raises all these questions about free speech, about the right to protest, even about the role of law enforcement in all of this.
Exactly. And I mean, we've got a stack of sources for this deep dive today. A deep dive from Turtle Boy Daily News. We've got a satirical look from Broken Baker on YouTube. Let's just say some strong opinions from the Howie Carr Radio Network. The ducks.
The ducks. So this is all happening now, like before the retrial.
Yeah, so that's what makes it even weirder. It's like this whole other thing happening in the background,
I mean, it is Canton Top.
Right. People are leaving these rubber duckies. Some of them are even marked with FKR, which, stands for Free Karen Reed all over town.
Okay.
As a form of protest, right?
Yeah.
They think she's innocent. And they see this as a way to bring attention to her case. So according to this Turtle Boy Daily News article, the Canton police, or at least this one Sergeant Buchanan, they're going after people over these rubber duck protests.
Protests? With what? Like little yellow bath toys?
Yeah. Like people are leaving them places with messages and stuff. And apparently Buchanan is super serious about it, even showing up at people's houses to ask them about it.
Okay, hold on. Am I missing something? How does that even qualify as a protest?
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like this weird gray area. It's definitely tension-grabbing, but is it actually disruptive? I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, it depends on what they're doing. Like, are these ducks blocking traffic? Are they on people's property or something?
Not really. It sounds more like people are leaving them in public spots with messages supporting Karen Reed, free Karen and that kind of thing. Okay,
so is it like a vandalism thing then? Are they spray painting these ducks or what?
From what I've heard, it's mostly just writing on them with markers. So not exactly Banksy-level stuff here.
Okay, so what's Buchanan's problem then? Is he just like anti-duck or something?
That's what I want to know. Like, don't they have more important things to worry about? The whole thing just seems like a giant waste of resources.
And taxpayer money, let's not forget.
Exactly. And it's not just the money, right? It's the precedent it sets. Like, if you can get investigated for leaving a rubber ducky on a bench, what does that say about free speech in this country? It's like we're living in some kind of absurdist comedy, except it's actually happening.
So where do we go from here?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, you have people's right to express themselves, even if it's through unconventional means. But on the other hand, you have to wonder if this is really the hill the Canton police want to die on.
Or, should I say, the pond they want to drain on.
Precisely. Because when you start cracking down on rubber duckies, it makes you wonder what else they might be willing to crack down on. And that's a slippery slope I don't think anyone wants to go down.
Which brings up that really interesting question. Are these ducks a legitimate form of protest?
Right.
Or are they, and this is what some people are claiming, are they actually a form of witness intimidation?
Right, because it's like this bizarre legal gray area.
Yeah.
And the Turtle Boy article, wow, it goes all in
Really?
on the absurdity of it all.
Okay.
They highlight this sergeant,
Okay.
Sergeant Buchanan, who, well, he seems to be on like a one-man crusade against these ducks.
Oh, wow.
The article, it also kind of points to this potential, what they call a two-tiered justice system at play in Canton.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they call Buchanan, and it's like he has totally different reactions to free speech depending on who is speaking.
That's a really important point to consider because this idea of a two-tiered justice system where the law is applied differently based on like someone's power or influence,
Right.
I mean, that's a serious concern in any society that values fairness and equality under the law.
Turtle Boy Daily News, they don't hold back. They're calling out what they see as a way over-the-top response from the police.
Important to note, Turtle Boy Daily News, it's run by this journalist, Aidan Kearney. He was actually jailed because of his reporting on this very case. So he's got, let's say, a unique perspective on all of this.
Yeah, definitely colors his reporting. So Kearney's article, it zeroes in on this woman who might actually get charged, all because she supposedly left a couple of those FKR ducks near this guy Chris Albert's place.
And for clarity's sake, Chris Albert, he's a local politician, claims these ducks are harassment, intimidation, the whole 9 yards. He's got a bit of a colorful past himself, though.
Oh yeah, Chris Albert's got a history. And Kearney, in his article, he really digs into this whole supposed connection between Albert and the state troopers, especially the main investigator on this whole duck fiasco, Sergeant Yuri Buchanan.
And here's where it starts to feel like we've stepped into some Coen Brothers movie. Small-town politics, whisters of favors, and a police sergeant who's maybe a little too interested in rubber duckies.
It's wild. This whole thing, it's like this weird little microcosm of bigger stuff. You know, freedom of speech, how much power the police have, where's the line between protesting and just being a nuisance? Kearney, he really lays it on thick, talks about this police response that seems, I don't know, kind of out of proportion to a couple rubber duckies, you know?
Well, that's the point, isn't it?
I mean, multiple state troopers, surveillance footage, they're even giving interrogations about this.
And that's where it goes from strange to honestly concerning. You read what Kearney lays out, these interactions, it's hard not to see a power imbalance there.
Big time. And get this, Kearney, he actually got the transcript of this interrogation. Buchanan questioning the woman about the ducks. It's nuts.
And this is official stuff, part of a legal case, not just hearsay.
Buchanan, he's grilling her. Where'd you get them? What'd you mean by leaving them? Even says writing FKR on them. That could be like a hate single or something.
It's a lot. And the woman, you can tell from the transcript, she's rattled. Buchanan, he even goes to her house, questions her in front of her kids.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Gives her this whole lecture. Be careful, he says. This could lead to something 10 times worse.
Talk about intimidation.
Right.
It gets worse, though. Her husband, he comes home while this is happening, and obviously he's taken aback. Kearney writes that the husband actually confronts Buchanan, asks him straight up, why are the state police even involved in this? This is like a prank, not a crime.
Valid question.
And according to the transcript, Buchanan, he doesn't have a great answer. Mumbles something about it being connected to the homicide investigation, but even he sounds unconvinced.
It's shaky ground he's on.
Totally. And there's this part, Kearney highlights it, Buchanan defending Chris Albert, the guy who called the cops on the duck lady. Buchanan actually says, quote, Chris Albert has a First Amendment right to film and talk to whoever he wants.
And there it is. That's the crux of it, right?
No.
Everyone's got free speech, sure. But when it feels like those rights are only enforced for some people, when the cops are quick to defend one guy's speech but not another's, that's a problem.
Huge problem.
Okay.
Okay, so that's Turtle Boy Daily News. Intense, right. But let's switch gears, get a different take. There's this YouTube channel, Broken Baker. They did a whole bit on this duck drama.
It's almost like this story. It's SO out there. It's begging for satire.
Right. Their video, get this, it's titled Canton Pizza Place Attacked by Rubber Duck. They really play it up how ridiculous this all is, this attack on Chris Albert's pizza place, which, side note, he owns a pizza place, of course he does.
But even with the jokes, they make a good point, and it ties back to what we were saying. They're pointing out the contrast, how much everyone's freaking out about these ducks, while the original murder, it's still full of unanswered questions.
Exactly. They don't say it outright, but it's there. That maybe, just maybe, the police's priorities are a little messed up.
Just a little.
They're using humor to highlight just how wild this whole situation is. It paints a picture of Canton as this, like, hotbed of drama with shady characters and these over-the-top reactions. It's almost like something out of a Coen Brothers film.
And sometimes humor. Humor can be a powerful tool, I think, to expose hypocrisy and make people think critically about situations they might otherwise dismiss as just, as bizarre.
Exactly. Exactly. And Broken Baker, they don't shy away from poking fun at Buchanan either.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They hinted some past behavior that, well, let's just say it definitely raises questions about his judgment. For those who haven't seen it, it's basically this whole satirical take on the case, and it's perfect.
He's got Buchanan down to a T.
Oh, my God. For real? Like that part where Buchanan's measuring the ducks?
And writing down all the details in his little notepad. Classic.
I know, right? It's like, what are you even going to do with that information, dude?
Exhibit A. One slightly damp rubber ducky, approximately 4 inches in length.
He's got a whole evidence board dedicated to these things with pictures and strings connecting everything.
Oh, 100%. And probably one of those maps with the red push pins, like they do on Law and Order.
Yes, with a big red circle around the park bench.
The ducks, they originated from the park bench.
It's just too perfect. But anyway, the best part is how he portrays the people who are leaving the ducks.
Okay, yeah, tell me about that. I didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing yet.
Okay, so it's like this whole mix of characters, right? Like you've got these super intense free Karen activists who are convinced she's being framed.
Yeah, I can see that. This case has definitely attracted some strong opinions.
And then there are these other people who are just doing it to mess with the cops.
Trolling the police with rubber duckies, that's a new one.
Right. It's like a weird form of performance art or something. But anyway, the whole thing is hilarious, and it really captures the absurdity of the situation.
That's the power of satire, though. It
Yeah.
can make you laugh at something that's also deeply concerning.
Exactly. Like you're laughing, but at the same time, you're like, wait, this is actually kind of messed up.
It makes you think about things in a different way,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not all fun and games, right? I mean, we've got Turtle Boy and Broken Baker both kind of taking the piss out of the cops, but there are some people who are seriously worried about this whole thing.
Oh, yeah, this isn't just some small-town drama. There's some bigger issues at play here.
Right. So we've got investigative journalism, we've got satire, but buckle up because we're not done. Next source, Howie Carr, the radio guy. If you don't know him, let's just say he's got opinions. Coming in with, like his signature fiery take on the whole thing.
Yeah,
Let's just say he definitely doesn't mince words.
right.
He's calling out the state police, like straight up calling them out for focusing on, get this, rubber duckies,
Oh.
while there are, and he makes sure to point this out, unsolved murders in Canada.
He's tapping into that sentiment we've seen before, That sense of frustration that a lot of people feel with institutions that they feel aren't prioritizing the right issues.
Right.
This distrust in authority, whether it's, towards law enforcement or even the judicial system, it's a recurring theme in this whole story, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it all kind of circles back to the Karen Reed case, doesn't it? And those deep divisions, it's exposed.
Yeah.
I mean, you have people who, they believe she is a victim of a miscarriage of justice.
Right.
Right. That evidence was planted, that there was a cover-up.
Right.
And then you have those who, they believe the system, they think the system worked as it should, and that she's guilty.
And those divisions, they become even more charged, I think, when you factor in the role of the police, especially in light of all these accusations of misconduct and
Right.
and the possibility of even a federal investigation into their handling of the case.
Right. And that distrust in law enforcement, it becomes almost impossible to ignore, I think, when you see a figure like Buchanan, He seems to embody that very tension between the public and those who are, sworn to serve and protect.
Yeah, he becomes a flashpoint,
Yes.
a symbol, really, of that potential for abuse of power.
Right. And let me tell you, Carr goes for it. Compares the state police to the Keystone Cops over this whole duck thing, mocking their investigation, everything.
Oh, yeah, he does not hold back.
He even brings up, old scandals. The state police have had their share, right? Carr's implying there's this pattern, misconduct, nobody held responsible, the whole 9 yards.
Classic Carr, for sure.
It's a lot, but honestly, kind of entertaining.
What, he thinks they're in the wrong for looking into this?
Big time. He was like, these guys are worried about rubber duckies while real crime is happening right under their noses.
I mean, he has a point. You have to wonder about priorities sometimes.
Right. And he was really going after Buchanan specifically, calling him all sorts of names, like $200,000 a year, meter maid, stuff like that.
Ouch. Yeah, when Howie Carr is coming after you, you know it's bad.
Seriously. But it's not just the name calling, right?
Yeah.
He was making some good points, too, about how this could discourage people from speaking out against the police, even if they have legitimate concerns.
That whole chilling effect thing, right?
Exactly. Like, if you see your neighbor getting harassed by the cops for leaving a rubber ducky on a bench, are you really going to feel comfortable calling them out on something more serious? Probably not.
Yeah, it creates this atmosphere of fear and intimidation, and that's never a good thing in a free society.
And that's what's so scary about this whole thing. It starts with something as small and seemingly insignificant as a rubber ducky, and the next thing you know, people are afraid to speak their minds.
It's a slippery slope for sure.
But, beneath all that, he's on to something, that feeling a lot of people have, like, something's not right here.
Exactly, and that's the common thread through all these sources, right? Intense investigation, the jokes, the opinion pieces, they all come back to this. Who has the power? How far does free speech go? And shouldn't the police be protecting everyone's rights, not just picking and choosing?
Right, it's got to be equal.
Exactly. And when it's not, when people start to feel like the system's rigged, that's when you lose trust, and that's hard to earn back.
And this is where those rubber duckies, this is where they become even more interesting, don't they?
How so?
They're not just about Karen Reed anymore,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
It's about something, I don't know, something bigger.
Okay.
Something about who we trust, who we believe, how we define justice.
They become a lightning rod, in a way, for all of these anxieties, all these frustrations. A physical manifestation of that simmering tension. I mean, you have to wonder, would this whole thing, would it have blown up in the same way if it was about something, I don't know, less whimsical?
That's a good question, because, I mean, a rubber ducky is inherently kind of, I don't know, silly.
Exactly, like this jarring contrast.
Right.
You have these incredibly serious
That's
allegations,
100%.
right? You have potential murder, you have police cover-ups, and then rubber duckies.
Right.
It's almost disarming.
And yet that absurdity, that's part of what makes it so effective, isn't it?
What do you mean?
Well, because you can't help but pay attention.
Okay.
It sparks a conversation.
Right.
Even if it starts with a laugh or, like a head shake.
It speaks to the power of symbols,
Yeah.
That visual, the visual of a rubber ducky, right? I mean, we usually associate that with, childhood, with innocence. And to juxtapose that with these, very adult themes, right? The themes of crime and justice and potential corruption. I mean, that's a powerful image.
It is, and it gets people talking, right?
Yeah.
Gets them debating, questioning the narratives that are being presented.
Which is crucial, crucial in a case like this where there are so many layers of complexity,
Yeah,
so much we still don't know.
absolutely. But let's talk more about that idea of the rubber duckies as a form of protest. Because legally speaking, I'm curious, like, where is the line between making a statement and actual witness intimidation?
That is where things get really, really murky.
Right.
You see, the First Amendment, it protects what's called symbolic speech, which that can be a lot of things.
Right.
I mean, it's not just, spoken or written words, but those protections, they're not absolute,
Okay.
There are limits, especially when you're talking about, potentially interfering with a court case.
So how do you determine when something crosses that line? When it's in a symbol, when it becomes a threat?
That's a question that courts have been grappling with for years and years.
I bet.
It often comes down to context and intent and the perception of those involved.
And in this case, I mean, you have very different interpretations of what those rubber duckies, what they represent.
Exactly.
And we are back, still wading through the wild world of rubber ducky justice, free speech, and trying to figure out just what's going on in Canton.
Yeah, because just when we thought we'd heard it all, this story decided to, lay a golden egg.
Okay, that's terrible, but I feel you. Seriously, though, this case just keeps getting weirder.
You think we're surprised? Turtle Boy practically broke the internet with this update.
So spill it. What's the latest insanity? Did Buchanan try to deputize the ducks?
Almost as crazy. Get this. Buchanan filed an actual criminal complaint against the woman with the ducks, remember her? The one who left him on the bench.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
He's pressing charges over this.
You better believe it. And for what? Felony witness intimidation?
Felony. He's gone full-on rubber ducky crackdown mode. Is he going to try and subpoena those ducks? Make him testify?
Well, thankfully it hasn't gone that far yet, but seriously, felony charges, it's beyond excessive.
Okay, I gotta ask, legally speaking, can he even do that? Is there some obscure law about ducks being intimidating or something?
That's the thing, right? Technically, there might be something on the books about actions perceived as a threat to a trial, even indirectly. But come on, we're talking about rubber duckies with slogans.
It's like he saw a chance to use the law to, I don't know, send a message. But like, what message is that exactly? Don't mess with Canton. We're serious about bath toys.
And that's what's so troubling. Even if these charges get thrown out, this woman's life is disrupted. There's legal fees, the stress, all over some ducks. What kind of precedent is that setting?
Exactly. Like, suddenly everyone in Canton is going to be walking on eggshells, afraid to even look at a rubber ducky the wrong way.
You joke, but that's the chilling effect in action. People see this and they think twice about speaking out, even if their cause is just, it's intimidating, and that's the whole point.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground here, haven't we?
We have.
From free speech and protests to, like the power of symbols and even like the erosion of trust.
Right.
But for you, like what stands out as, I don't know, the most surprising part of this whole rubber ducky situation?
It's funny when you really break it down. I mean, none of the individual elements are that shocking, on their own.
What do you mean?
Well, the Karen Reed case, it's tragic.
Right.
But sadly, these allegations of police misconduct, of potential cover-ups, I mean, they're not unheard of, are they?
Right.
And using symbols in protest movements, I mean, that's about as old as time.
It's the combination, I think, that makes this story so unique.
Exactly. It's like someone took these random elements,
Yeah.
like rubber duckies,
Right.
A contentious trial, a town that seems to be full of larger than life characters,
Right.
and they blended it all together into this I don't know, this almost surreal story.
And of course, the internet is having a field day with this.
That's really, I mean, this is a story tailor-made for the digital age, right?
Right.
It's got it all: controversy, humor, a healthy dose of the absurd.
Right.
But beyond all that, I mean, beyond the memes and the hot takes and all that,
Right.
What I find really striking is how quickly, how effectively this simple object, this rubber ducky, has become, I don't know, imbued with so much meaning. It's like it's become a Rorschach test.
What do you mean?
Well, for people's perceptions of the Karen Reed case, right? Of law enforcement, of the justice system in general.
That's what makes it all so, I don't know, so fascinating.
Right.
I mean, on the surface, it's almost comical.
Yeah.
But then when you delve a little deeper,
right,
you realize it's like this microcosm of some very, very real, some very significant issues.
Precisely. And that in essence, I mean, that's the power of a deep dive, isn't it?
What do you mean?
Well, we take these seemingly isolated, these strange events, and we use them to examine the bigger picture. We ask the tough questions, and
Right.
and hopefully we come out of it, with a more nuanced understanding of the world around us.
So, big picture time. What have we learned? Besides, maybe we should all have a stash of rubber duckies, just in case.
Always be prepared. But really, it's about paying attention even to these weird little stories. Because sometimes the silliest things, they show us the cracks in the system,
Totally. And we got to keep asking questions, keep those in charge accountable, because if a rubber ducky can become a protest symbol, anything goes.
It's true. And we've got to make sure those protests, however they happen, people hear them.
This was a wild one. Thanks for diving in with us, folks. Until next time, keep your eyes open, your minds sharp, and remember, sometimes the smallest things can make the biggest splash.
That is the Commonwealth grasping at straws. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck.
Judges gavel slams to seat. Lawyers dance, twist up their feet. Finger points truth in the air. Crime scene chalk, we got there. Witness falls under the glare. Truth lies hidden, but where? Evidence in shadow cracks. Guilty walks with ducks in packs. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. If it quacks with a smack and waddles in the track, it's stuck. It circles round the facts, can't hide from the luck. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. Twist the tail they change their tune. Photos snapped under the moon. Bloody prints and muddy paths. Money trails that never last. Defendant's face behind a mask. Justice chained up to the past. Solitary cell they spin. Real truth trapped deep within. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. If it quacks with a smack and waddles in the track, it's stuck. It circles round the facts, can't hide from the luck. If it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it's a duck.